for too hard, damn it! So, when it comes to Thor Love and Thunder, surprisingly, I did not hate this film. For all of you who do not know, I don't like Thor Ragnarok. I didn't find that film to be nearly as entertaining and as funny as people say it is. In fact, I found it to be really infuriating and cringy because half of the film just felt like a bog standard Thor film, very similar to Thor the Dark World, Kenneth Branagh's Thor. But then, out of nowhere, there just randomly is random forced comedy that Taika Waititi just injected into the film. Not to mention the fact I didn't like the work ethic behind that film. The fact that most of that film was improvised, to me, you could just tell. It just seemed like Chris Hemsworth and Taika Waititi and the rest of the cast and crew just kind of wanted to goof off on set, and just that to me just didn't seem like the right direction to take a film called Thor Ragnarok. Like, I don't know why you would make that sort of like a weird spoof parody comedy thing. In fact, in many ways, Thor Ragnarok felt like a farce to me. And so going into Thor Love and Thunder, I thought I was going to get another Ragnarok, but surprisingly, I didn't. I don't think this film is good or great by any means. I mean, when the credits rolled, I pretty much just went to myself, yeah, it's alright. But the more you think about the film, the less it makes sense. But also, it is just abundantly clear that either things were cut out, or there was not enough things shot, or Taika Waititi was just kind of half-arsing it. But then, on the other hand, the film is inoffensively short, so similar to Thor the Dark World, I didn't feel like my time was being wasted in a way. Like, I didn't feel like I was being forced to sit down and watch this 2.5-hour slog, like, say, Eternals. Thor Love and Thunder was kind of quick, short, to the point, and whilst I appreciated that, it also infuriated me because a lot of the things in the story needed more time to be fleshed out and developed. More specifically, Gorr the God Butcher, because I mean, oh my god, did this film just waste Christian Bale? But I'll get onto that in a little bit. Just overall, Thor Love and Thunder to me is a film I don't think is very good, but I also didn't hate it. And in many ways, I don't really understand the intense negativity Twitter has towards this film. Going into the film, I'd seen all these tweets like, oh my god, this film is so unfunny, I didn't laugh once. Oh my god, this film was such a drag, I hated it, it's just stupid and dumb. And I will agree that this film is stupid and kinda dumb, but I also was entertained at points, and in fact there are a lot of moments I thought were genuinely very good. I mean, one of the things that genuinely worked for me in this film was the romance between Thor and Jane. I mean, the romance between Thor and Jane was never the best thing ever, I felt. I actually rewatched Kenneth Branagh's Thor the other day, and aside from the fact that I realized that I treated that film way too harshly back in the day when I reviewed it. I mean, my review for the film is called Thor Theatrically Dull. Bear in mind I was like 17, 18 when I made this, and I won't lie, it's kind of outdated, my thoughts in that review, just because, to put it simply, at the time I thought Thor 1, all the stuff on Asgard was great and amazing, but all the stuff on Earth was kind of crap. But having just rewatched the first Thor film, I mean, I have to take most of that back. That first Thor film is really good. I really enjoyed it. I mean, granted, it's not the most, like, mind-blowing thing ever. I do think that when it comes to Thor as a character, he needs to go on epic space quests. He needs to be an epic Norse Viking god. He needs to be the epic god of thunder. But in terms of the overall story and character arc for Thor in that first Thor film, I think it's really well done. Having this young, arrogant warrior prince being banished, sent to Earth to learn some humility and patience and selflessness. It's really strong, and by the end, when the film ends, you're just like, okay, I like this character, and I can't wait to see where it goes next. In fact, the problem with the Thor franchise is not the fact that the Thor films used to be serious and try to take itself as something like a Lord of the Rings. It was just the fact that Thor the Dark World was kind of dull and wasn't really adventurous. If Thor the Dark World was more adventurous and entertaining and Thor went on a quest with Loki to the Dark World, and they fought a Malekith that was more similar to the comics and the cartoons, who was more of like a cosmic Joker, it could have been really good and entertaining, and therefore Ragnarok would no longer have needed that radical shift in tonal direction with bringing in Taika Waititi and bringing in the forced, cringy improv humor. Because one of the things that Thor Love and Thunder does is it kind of makes Thor a dumbass in a way. It's weird. There are times where Thor acts like Thor, and I'm like, okay, this is good. Chris Hemsworth is not half-arsing this. Chris Hemsworth knows how to play this character. It's just that the writing is just so jarring. There are times where he is being serious Thor. The part in the film where the people of Asgard are panicking, oh my god, where are the children, where are the children? And then Thor immediately takes charge, he rallies everyone up, he's like, Asgardians, blah blah blah, we will go get the children. But then the film kind of ruins that moment because they have Meek randomly like scratching on the whiteboard, and it's like, stop. Let the moment play, let this be serious, because Chris Hemsworth, when he's playing regal and sincere and honorable Thor, is amazing. Like, genuinely, like, why can't they just make Thor straight and serious? Because when he does that, he's really good. The thing is that people are like, oh, when Thor is serious, he's boring. No, you're just thinking of Thor the Dark World Thor, because Thor the Dark World is not a very well-written film, and so Thor comes across as a bit bland. But when you look at the character in, say, the first Avengers, or in Age of Ultron, or in Infinity War, the character, whilst he can be stoic and sincere and motivated by revenge in certain points, the character can be funny, and he's always been like that. Part of Thor's charm is that he is a man, a fish out of water, if you will. He isn't entirely acclimatized to Earth's culture, and so he views things that the people of Earth do as odd compared to his Asgardian customs. That I like, and that I think is where the humor and comedy comes from with Thor. But when you get to Ragnarok and Endgame, they diminish Thor as a character by making him this sad sack loser. Granted, I think Thor's arc in Endgame could have been really strong if they didn't keep making fun of the fact that he's fat. Them playing Fat Thor off as a joke is really disheartening, because at the end of the day, Thor's character arc in Endgame is actually quite strong until you just have people take the piss out of him because they're just like, he's fat now. And it's like, no, this man thinks he's failed and blames himself for half of the universe disappearing, and they're just taking the piss out of it. Like, what? Like, I'm not gonna lie, I do miss the days of Thor just being a sincere, honorable character. In fact, his character arc is very logical throughout the MCU, but somehow, since Ragnarok, they kind of squandered it. Thor's logical character arc is that he ends up being King of Asgard, which they do at the end of Ragnarok for like 2 minutes before they undo it in Infinity War by having Thanos kill half of the Asgardians. And then in Endgame, he just gives away the title to Valkyrie just because, and it's like, no, what are you doing? Thor's purpose is to be king. Why are we not getting him to the point where he becomes King of Asgard? The choice they decided to make in Endgame where Thor makes Valkyrie King of Asgard, even though she should be the queen, I don't know why calling her Queen Valkyrie diminishes her as a woman, because it doesn't. In the MCU, she identifies as a woman, and so therefore she should be a queen. It's not like Queen Elizabeth II of England should be called King Elizabeth II. Like, no, that doesn't make any sense. That's stupid. But it's just like, can we get Thor to the point where he is now the King of Asgard and is the All-Father? Just because that's kind of where he needs to be. You watch Thor 1, and it's him ready to prove his worthiness to be king. Ragnarok ends with him being king, and they undo it, and it's like, no, make him king again, because he needs to be king, because that's where the character needs to go. The MCU is just in this weird spot of just where it keeps retroactively undoing things so they can keep resetting characters, and then make another film with them, and then basically end them back at the same point where they started off, and it's like, no, let these characters grow and evolve. I don't think half the characters in the MCU are growing and evolving anymore, because they're either dead or they're just being set back to how they were at the beginning of the film. And as an audience member, I'm kind of just sitting there going, why the hell am I watching these films? Because they're just repeating the same character arc over and over again. When people say that the Marvel movies are not copied and pasted, they're just wrong, because they are. Like, whilst there are different things in them to make them look and feel slightly different, at the end of the day, they are just the same narrative and story structure, copied and pasted over and over again. Denis Villeneuve was not wrong when he said the MCU films are just copied and pasted, because they are. Now, getting onto the things I did like in this film, I liked Chris Hemsworth as Thor. I don't think the characterization was spot on, but Hemsworth is always good in the role. You can tell he knows how to play this character, it's just that the script just doesn't allow his character to be kind of intelligent and smart. But one of the scenes where I felt like Hemsworth was really allowed to shine as Thor was in the Omnipotent City, when Zeus is just like, we don't care about Gorr and all that kind of stuff, and Thor's just like looking around at all these gods just being like, didn't you hear what I'm saying? There's someone here that is coming on their way to kill you. Do you not care? People are dying. And it's like, this is the Thor I know and love. This is the honorable Thor that will do anything to protect the people. And speaking of Omnipotent City, I loved Russell Crowe as Zeus in this film. I thought that was genuinely one of the best parts of the film. He's just so funny, just like the weird stereotypical Greek-esque accent, or like Australian Greek accent thing or whatever. It's so good. And that's it. You're uninvited to the orgy. Like, I found that stuff to be really entertaining and funny. And if the film was, say, 75% seriousness and 25% comedy, I think Russell Crowe's Zeus would have made a much stronger impact, because the film's tone is all over the place. And if, say, we were having a more serious Thor film, and then you go to Omnipotent City, and the stakes are kind of high, like Gorr the God Butcher is on his way to get ready to kill people, and then, you know, Thor is there, he meets Zeus, and he's like really excited, just like, oh my god, this is crazy, and then he meets Zeus, and he's just how he's characterized in this film. I think that could have been really funny and impactful, but, you know, because the film is so totally inconsistent, it's kind of like, he shows up, and you're like, oh yeah, this is entertaining and fun, but also, I don't know, it makes the film feel like a farce. Another thing I also really liked in this film was the relationship between Thor and Jane. Thor and Jane's relationship has never been a strong point to me in the MCU. Granted, having rewatched Thor 1 and seeing their relationship again, I actually think it is a bit more realistic than I initially gave it credit for, because it is two attractive people who find each other attractive, and you can feel the chemistry and the lust in their eyes, and it is quite nice. But Thor Love and Thunder, I think, does a really good job at establishing the relationship they had at the end of The Dark World and at the beginning of Ragnarok. Filling that gap of their relationship, we get to see that visually play out. I thought was really strong. That montage was done quite effectively. Like, there are good things in this movie, and that is something I will give this film credit for. I liked the relationship, the love stuff between Thor and Jane. The scene where they're on the boat and Thor is just like, Jane, I want to be shitty with you, I love you. And then Jane tells Thor that she has cancer. That was a really impactful moment. That was really strong and poignant. I was like, damn, that was quite good. That was really, yeah, I really dug that. I also thought Christian Bale was really good with Gorr the God Butcher, or at least he was very good for the amount of screen time he was given, because he's kind of just wasted in the film. Like, I'm sure there's, like, a lot more scenes of Gorr in this film. Him killing more gods, because that's what the film needed. Because aside from the god he kills at the beginning of the film, he doesn't really do a lot of god butchering. But when he shows up on screen, he is terrifying and a menacing presence. Like, the black goo that's coming out of his mouth, the red eyes. The thing that I found funny was how Taika Waititi was just like, we couldn't do comic book Gorr, because if we did, he would have been compared to Voldemort. And it's kind of like, but he does just look like Voldemort now anyway. Like, you might as well just go all the way and give him the flat nose. But the thing is, though, is that comic book Gorr doesn't really look like Voldemort. In fact, MCU Gorr looks more like Voldemort. And it's just, to be fair, I get where he's coming from, because you don't really want to get Christian Bale, an actor of that caliber, and just plaster them in a bunch of CGI or makeup to basically make them barely unrecognizable. Oh, and I really like the cinematography when they went to the Shadow Realm and they fought Gorr, and it turned black and white, but then whenever they illuminated the scene with, like, the light from Mjolnir or something, a little bit of color would seep into it. I thought that was visually interesting and cool. Oh, also Stellan Skarsgård shows up for, like, 2 seconds, and that was great, because Stellan Skarsgård is always great, and also, it's my boy, it's the Baron Harkonnen! But other than that, everything else about the film was either fine, or I just didn't really care, or I found kind of cringy, or was kind of bad. The writing in this is kind of lazy-ish. Like, I don't know why, but somehow Thor can just transfer his powers to other people, and it's like, that could have made sense if the film established that Thor is slowly developing new powers. He is slowly becoming the All-Father like Odin, and so he's able to do that type of magical stuff and start transferring his powers. But the film doesn't do that. Thor can just now do that. Okay, there's a scene in this film that I found to be really weird, and that's the scene between Jane and Darcy, where Jane tells Darcy that she has stage 4 cancer. And the way the scene is shot and edited and directed is just weird, because it almost feels like they're taking the mick out of cancer. But it seems like they're trying to be light-hearted around the topic of cancer. And it's just awkward and weird, because, like, this should be a kind of deep, hard-hitting moment. But it also just feels like they're kind of taking the mick. I don't think that is the intention. I think it's meant to be oh yeah, we're just trying to keep this light and airy and fluffy, but also, this is a very serious subject matter. You can't play this off as a joke. The film does that a bunch of times, and it's just like, what is going on? No, don't do that. Can you play this film just a bit more straighter? Can you make this film with a bit more sincerity? Because I do think there are a lot of really good moments in the film. Like I mentioned earlier, the scene with Jane and Thor on the boat is really good. I like the idea of making Thor a surrogate father for Gorr's daughter at the end. I thought that was nice. But then it's also kind of just like, there's not really a lot of substance in this film. Honestly, to me, it just seemed like Taika Waititi didn't really know what to do with this film. It's like he kind of just made this film just for the money and half-assed it. Because I'm sensing that this is the film where people have turned against Taika Waititi in a way. People used to find his sort of comedic, light-hearted silliness in interviews to be quite charming and fun. But now they're kind of just like, nah, he's kind of just taking the mick. Like, the interview he did with, I think it was Variety, where, like, they break down the scene or whatever. I mean, I watched that full interview, and, like, it's just Taika Waititi being Taika Waititi, so I didn't have a problem with it. But when people are just like, oh, he's slagging off visual effects artists and he's taking the mick. Nah, to me, it just seemed like he was being kind of coy. But also in the interview, you kind of can just get the sense that he kind of just didn't care about this film, because there's actually a really great video I saw by In-Depth Cine where they basically broke down Taika Waititi's directing process at different budget levels. The video breaks down his directing process for Hunt for the Wilder People, Jojo Rabbit, and then Thor Ragnarok. And it's a really interesting video, and one of the things I found interesting were the clips they included of Taika Waititi talking about his process when it comes to directing. And he seems very sincere and methodical when he's talking about something like The Hunt for the Wilder People or Jojo Rabbit. And then you look at the interviews for Thor Love and Thunder and he's kind of just like, yeah, we kind of just like did a bunch of stuff and then we had to reshoot a bunch of stuff because we just could. And to be honest, it's very apparent that they reshot a lot of things or they had to fix this film in post, just because a lot of the CGI is very noticeable. I hate the fact that when Jane is the Mighty Thor, most of the time her helmet is CGI. The CGI helmet they stick on Thor during the bit where he finds out Jane is Lady Thor and he's all just like, Jane? That was a stupid moment. Like, oh my god. She sounded like Scooby-Doo. Can this... That's one of the things that annoys me about this film, is that if this film was just played a bit more straighter, it could have been much more effective and impactful. But with this film, you can really just tell the status of Marvel's approach to filmmaking. Don't worry, we'll fix it in post. We'll quickly just rush things together. Don't worry too much about it. It'll all come together in the edit. And I don't like that, because whilst, yes, that is a element of filmmaking, you have to do reshoots because there are other ideas you come up with, or there are certain things that need to be reshot just because it doesn't match continuity-wise or tonally-wise. But this mentality of, oh, just because we have the money to do it, we can, is just really wasteful to me, and I don't like that. As someone that wants to be a filmmaker, that wants to work in this industry, it's really disheartening to see people just waste money like this, because when you are down in the dirt, when you have to rely on either self-finance or crowdfunding, every penny counts. You need to use every, dollar, penny, pound effectively to tell your story, but also to make sure you're not wasting people's time and money. And to see this sort of aloof attitude from industry professionals just being like, oh yeah, we can just waste all this money just because, it's really disheartening to see. It seems like gone are the days when directors would painlessly spend months and months of pre-production, carefully planning and crafting the look and feel of the film, having costumes made that the actors could wear on set, creating models for actors to interact with on set so that they don't feel like they're just acting against, tennis balls. Everything now is more or less just made in the computer, fix it in post, and you can just tell everything about these films just suffer for it. And Marvel Studios, to me, are just the worst offenders of it, because that just seems like it's their process. They don't really care about the story anymore because it doesn't matter. People will show up in their hordes. These movies will make billions of dollars. And it kind of just upsets me, because rewatching Thor 1, you can see the care, the passion, the craftsmanship Kenneth Branagh and his team put into that first Thor film. Visually, it's stunning. The costume work is amazing. They brought Thor to life. And as the Thor films go on, they look worse and worse, and the character gets worse and worse. Marvel Studios and Disney are like the #1 film studio conglomerate in the world, and you think that would mean that they would want to be innovators, they'd want to be pushing the limits, pushing the boundaries, trying to see what they can do, what they can try. They have the money and resources to do something incredibly spectacular and crazy, but no. It just seems like they'd rather just make the same film over and over again, but this time with less effort. And I think this almost factory production line mentality that they have right now of just, we have to pump out all this content, just keep making stuff, pushing it out, get it out, is really hindering the quality of their work, because go back to Phase 1, go back to Thor 1, and whilst Thor 1 is not a perfect film, I think it is a very good film. It's just, you can feel the difference. Thor 1 feels like a film. Thor Love and Thunder does not feel like a film, it feels like a mass-produced product. Another thing too that I thought was quite disingenuous when they were marketing this film was how Natalie Portman was just like, oh, this film is so gay, and then you watch the film and it's like, it really isn't. The only thing that's gay about it is that Korg has a husband or something and he made a baby, that's it. I remember Tessa Thompson was just like, oh yeah, Valkyrie's character, we're gonna see her grow and explore and find love, maybe she'll run into the new queen of Asgard or something. That didn't happen. Valkyrie barely does anything in the film. But to wrap things up, because I feel like I'm just going in kind of a massive endless circle, I didn't hate Thor Love and Thunder, but I don't think it's particularly a good film either. The film ended and I was like, yeah, It's alright, but like, I'm not in a rush to go and watch it again. That being said, I like it more than Ragnarok. I do not think this is one of the best Thor films. In fact, probably the best Thor film is Kenneth Branagh's Thor. Well, technically the best Thor film was Avengers Infinity War, because again, nothing has ever come close to the brilliance of Thor's "What more could I lose" monologue. That speech is just so damn good. The layers Hemsworth brings to that is just, it's so good. But in terms of MCU films with Thor in the title, yeah, Kenneth Branagh's Thor is easily the best Thor film. Like, I'm no Thor aficionado, but to me, the tone of the first Thor film is what I want from the character. You know, my relationship to Thor is that I know him obviously from Earth's Mightiest Heroes, the cartoon. I know him from the appearances he has in, like, Spider-Man and in the first Avengers issue. The stuff where, like, you know, he's dealing with Loki on the Isle of, is it the Isle of Blessed? The Isle of something, and, like, there's, like, those weird goblin creatures and all that kind of stuff. I like Thor as a character a lot, and Thor to me works well when he is heightened, a Shakespearean godlike figure who is humble and sincere, and Kenneth Branagh to me nailed that characterization in the first Thor film. Dark World to me could have been great, it just wasn't as epic and as adventurous as it should have been, and I don't like the direction they took Thor after that. They were just like, oh, Thor is boring, when he, you know, they tried to do the Lord of the Rings type adventure thing. No, we have to make it goofy and, like, that to me was the pivotal mistake they have done with the Thor character. And I think the results of that can be seen with the reaction to Thor Love and Thunder. I don't think Taika Waititi is a terrible filmmaker. I think he's a good filmmaker. I really love Jojo Rabbit. But Thor Love and Thunder to me, and his attitude towards directing Thor Love and Thunder that is coming across in the interviews, doesn't sit well with me, and just, I don't know, I expected better. I'm very curious to see if he's actually going to keep his Star Wars project, just because the reaction to Twitter, they are not liking Taika Waititi right now. And we know Lucasfilm to be incredibly reactionary, and who knows? I will not be surprised if in a couple of weeks or months there will be an announcement being like, Taika Waititi will no longer direct his Star Wars project due to creative differences. But at the end of the day, the problem I have with Thor Love and Thunder is just the direction they've taken Thor. I don't like him being so aloof and, you know, in this weird midlife crisis state. I liked it when Thor was sincere and honorable and a warrior prince. He could be fun, he could be silly, but at the end of the day, the character itself was not a joke. I need the character to go back to that more Shakespearean-esque roots. Bring back in that epic fantasy tone, that Lord of the Rings-esque tone that Kenneth Branagh brought to Thor 1. And that is in Thor the Dark World, but you just need to tell a more interesting story than the story they told in Thor the Dark World. And just make Thor an epic character again, because Chris Hemsworth is a fantastic Thor. He is great. I love him in this role. I just don't like it when he has to be all, you know, improv-y and aloof, because that just to me isn't Thor. I'm being deadly serious when I say this. I genuinely think Joss Whedon wrote Thor the best out of all the directors that have handled Thor, because he knew how to make Thor funny, but also make sure he was still the sincere, honorable warrior. But also, I think Thor Love and Thunder just kind of cemented the fact that the Marvel Cinematic Universe is running out of steam in a way, not necessarily in terms of the projects they're pumping out, but more just in terms of the integrity of their storytelling, because the post-credit scene setting up Hercules was so rushed, so abrupt, and you're kind of just like, this was not like one of the post-credit scenes of Phase 1 or Phase 2, where there was sort of a gravitas and elegance to the filmmaking. It was just like, oh yeah, we got Russell Crowe here, we're going to do a little dolly in on him, and then, oh yeah, we got the actor playing Hercules there, and we'll do like a low-angle shot of him there, and then that's it. That's kind of the scene, and like, they go, oh, Hercules, and then literally just cut straight to black, and it's like, why did you do that? Let that moment linger for a little bit. Create some tension, some drama. So, yeah, I didn't hate this movie. It's alright. It's fine. But, yeah, it's nothing great either. But what did you guys think of Thor Love and Thunder? Let me know in the comments down below. Like, subscribe, follow me on social media, all that good stuff. And until we meet again, I'll see you guys next time.